In this video, we'll uncover the fatal error made by a 60-year-old sailor during his circumnavigation. A mistake so unforgivable it changed everything forever. Sailing around the world demands more than skill and courage. It requires absolute vigilance and respect for the unforgiving power of the sea. This story is a harsh reminder that even the most experienced sailors can fall victim to one overlooked detail, and the consequences can be devastating. We'll explore exactly what went wrong, why it mattered so much, and most importantly, how you can avoid making the same critical error on your own journey. Whether you're a seasoned sailor or just dreaming of your first voyage, understanding these dangers is essential. Through this tragic example, we'll highlight the key safety principles and precautions that could save your life when facing the unpredictable ocean. Prepare yourself for a sobering yet vital lesson in maritime survival. Stay with us until the end and share which safety step you believe no sailor should ever neglect. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more hard-earned insights and unforgettable sailing stories. Let's set sail into this cautionary tale. Now, John stood at the helm of Wanderlust, his 40-foot sloop, as the salty breeze whipped through his graying hair. It was June 2022, and the docks of Southampton, England, buzzed with the quiet anticipation of a man about to chase a lifelong dream. At 60, John was no stranger to the sea. A retired engineer with a meticulous mind, he had spent decades sailing coastal waters. But this was different. This was a solo circumnavigation, a journey around the globe, alone, against the relentless forces of nature. His wife Mary stood on the pier with their 2 grown children, her eyes glistening with pride and worry. "Come back to us," she whispered as he hugged her tightly, the weight of her words lingering like the tide. The crowd waved as Wanderlust slipped away, a speck of white against the vast horizon. Little did they know, this moment would be the last time they saw him alive. John's journey was the culmination of years of preparation. He wasn't some reckless adventurer. He was a man of precision. His boat was equipped with the latest technology: GPS, satellite communication, an AIS transponder, and a robust suite of safety gear, including an E-Pure-B for emergencies. He had studied navigation techniques, from traditional celestial methods using a sextant to modern chart-plotting software. His logbook, neatly organized, detailed every leg of the journey, from wind speeds to barometer readings. John knew the sea could be unforgiving, but he believed his experience and preparation would carry him through. As he sailed south across the Atlantic, he felt alive, the horizon stretching endlessly before him. The first few weeks were exhilarating, a testament to his skill and resolve. The Atlantic crossing to the Caribbean was not without its challenges. Off the coast of the Canary Islands, John encountered a squall that tested his nerve. The wind howled at 30 knots, and waves battered Wanderlust's hull. But he reefed the sails early, reducing their area to maintain control, and steered with a steady hand. The storm passed, and he scribbled in his logbook, "First test passed. The sea keeps you honest." This moment, shared later in a satellite call with Mary, became a story of triumph, a hook to keep his small online following engaged. He posted updates on a blog, detailing his route and technical insights, like how he used the trade winds to optimize his speed. His readers, mostly sailing enthusiasts, marveled at his courage. But as he crossed into the Caribbean, a subtle shift began. The solitude, once liberating, started to weigh on him. Nights alone under the stars were beautiful but lonely, and he found himself talking to the boat as if it were a friend. In the Caribbean, John anchored in Barbados to restock and repair minor wear on Wanderlust. The locals admired his grit, a 60-year-old man tackling the seas alone. He spent a week there, recalibrating his equipment and studying weather patterns for the next leg through the Panama Canal. The canal passage was a technical marvel, requiring precise navigation through locks and channels. John executed it flawlessly, his engineering mind at ease with the mechanics of it all. He emerged into the Pacific in August 2022, the vastness of the ocean, both thrilling and daunting. The Pacific leg was smoother, with steady trade winds pushing him toward French Polynesia. He navigated using a combination of GPS and star sightings, a nod to the sailors of old. Each night he'd sit on deck, sextant in hand, plotting his position under a canopy of stars. It was romantic, almost poetic, but the sea demanded more than romance. It demanded respect. By the time John reached Cape Town in December 2022, he was halfway through his journey. The city's vibrant energy felt like a reward after months of isolation. He spent 2 weeks there, repairing a frayed halyard and stocking up on provisions. His blog posts grew more reflective, hinting at the toll of solitude. "The sea is a mirror," he wrote. "It shows you who you are, flaws and all." His followers left comments urging him to stay safe, sensing a shift in his tone. Mary called him via satellite phone, her voice trembling as she asked about the next leg. The Indian Ocean crossing to Fremantle, Australia. Known for its treacherous, roaring 40s, the Indian Ocean was a beast, with storms that could whip up 50-foot waves without warning. John reassured her, citing his preparation and experience. "I've got this," he said, his voice steady but his heart racing. Deep down, he knew this leg would be his greatest challenge. As he prepared to leave Cape Town, John studied the weather forecasts closely. His satellite system delivered updates every 6 hours, and he noticed a low-pressure system forming far to the south. The forecast was uncertain. Some models predicted it would fizzle out, while others suggested it could intensify into a storm. John faced a critical decision: wait in Cape Town for clearer skies or press on to stay on schedule. His engineering mind craved precision, but the sailor in him felt the pull of the open sea. He calculated that by maintaining a steady pace, he could outrun the system. It was a gamble, but one he felt confident making. He wrote in his logbook, "Weather looks dicey, but I trust wanderlust and my instincts. Full speed ahead." This moment, a pivotal hook, marked the beginning of a chain of events that would unravel his dream. The first few days out of Cape Town were deceptively calm. The wind was brisk but manageable, and wanderlust sliced through the waves with ease. John maintained a rigorous watch schedule, sleeping in short bursts to stay alert. He monitored his instruments, noting the barometer's steady readings and the wind's direction. But on the 4th day, the horizon darkened. The barometer began to drop, a slow, ominous decline that signaled trouble. John checked his satellite feed. The low-pressure system was intensifying, moving faster than predicted. Winds were now forecast to hit 40 knots, with gusts up to 60. The seas were building, waves reaching 20 feet. His heart sank, but he pushed, the fear aside. He'd faced storms before. He could handle this. Or so he thought. As the storm closed in, John made a critical error. Instead of reefing his sails early to reduce wind resistance, he kept them full, hoping to outrun the worst of it. Running before the wind, a tactic where the boat sails with the storm at its back, can work if executed properly. But it requires preparation, deploying a drogue to stabilize the boat or reefing sails to avoid being overpowered. John did neither. Fatigue clouded his judgment, and the solitude of the past months dulled his instincts. He scribbled in his logbook, "Storms coming faster than I thought. Should have reefed earlier. Too late now." The question hung in, the air unanswered, as the wind began to howl. The waves grew monstrous, towering over Wanderlust like liquid mountains. John gripped the helm, his knuckles white, as the boat surged forward, dangerously fast. By nightfall, the storm was in full force. The wind screamed at 50 knots, and waves crashed over the deck, flooding the cockpit. John fought to maintain control, but Wanderlust was being pushed to its limits. The sails, still too large, strained against the mast. He realized his mistake too late. A massive wave loomed behind him, its crest curling like a predator. "No, no, no!" he muttered, his voice lost in the gale. The wave struck, and Wanderlust broached, tilting violently to one side. John was thrown against the cockpit, his harness keeping him tethered, but his body bruised. The boat righted itself, but the damage was done. The mast groaned under the strain, and a sickening crack echoed as a stay snapped. The storm wasn't just a test, it was a reckoning. And John was running out of time. The night was a blur of chaos. John clung to the helm of Wanderlust as the Indian Ocean unleashed its fury. It was December 2022, and the storm he had underestimated was now a full-blown gale, with winds howling at 60 knots and waves towering at 30 feet. The air was thick with spray, stinging his face like needles. His earlier decision to keep the sails full, hoping to outrun the storm, was proving catastrophic. The boat was overpowered, lurching dangerously with each gust. John's heart pounded as he realized the gravity of his mistake. He should have reefed the sails hours ago, reducing their area to stabilize Wanderlust. He should have deployed a drogue, a device to slow the boat and keep it steady in the monstrous seas. But fatigue and overconfidence had clouded his judgment, and now he was paying the price. The cockpit was awash with water, the bilge pumps struggling to keep up. John's hands trembled as he fought to steer, his engineering mind racing for solutions. He considered heaving to, a technique where the boat is positioned to ride out the storm with minimal sail, but the seas were too chaotic now. The waves were breaking unpredictably, each one a potential death blow. He glanced at his instruments, the GPS flickering as the storm's electrical interference played havoc with the electronics. His satellite phone was useless in the roaring wind. Alone, 1,000 miles from land, John felt the weight of his isolation. He scribbled in his logbook, the pencil shaking in his hand. Waves too big, sails too full. I misjudged this. God help me. The words were a confession, a plea, and a hook that would later haunt those who read them. As the hours dragged on, Wanderlust groaned under the strain. The snapped stay had weakened the mast, and every wave threatened to bring it down. John finally managed to reef the mainsail, crawling along the deck in his harness, soaked and battered by the elements. But it was too little, too late. The storm was relentless, and a new threat emerged. A rogue wave, larger than the rest, looming on the horizon. John saw it coming, its crest glowing faintly in the moonlight. "Not like this," he whispered, his voice drowned by the wind. The wave hit with the force of a freight train, flipping Wanderlust onto its side in a violent capsize. John was thrown into the water, his harness tethering him to the boat, but dragging him under as the waves rolled over. The cold shocked his system, his life jacket keeping him afloat, but his strength fading. For a moment, the world was silent, just the muffled roar of the sea. Wanderlust righted itself, battered but still afloat, the self-righting design doing its job. John clawed his way back aboard, coughing and shivering. The cockpit was a wreck, instruments shattered, and the mast was leaning dangerously. He activated his E-Pure, the emergency beacon sending a distress signal to the nearest rescue coordination center. But he was in the middle of the Indian Ocean, far from shipping lanes. Help, if it came, would take days. John knew this, and the realization hit like another wave. He sat in the flooded cockpit, the storm still raging, and wrote in his logbook, "Capsized. Epurb on. I made a mistake. I should have waited. Now I fear it's too late. If anyone finds this, tell my family I love them." The words were raw, a final testament to his regret. The storm raged for another day, each hour a battle for survival. John secured what he could, tying down loose gear and pumping out water manually when the bilge pumps failed. His hands were raw, his body bruised, but he refused to give up. He thought of Mary, her smile, her voice urging him to come home. He thought of his children, their pride and his dream. Those memories kept him moving, even as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. But the sea was merciless. Another wave, not as large but perfectly timed, struck Wanderlust broadside. The weakened mast finally gave way, crashing into the deck and tearing a gash in the hull. Water poured in, faster than John could bail. The boat was sinking, and with it, his hope. John's final moments were spent fighting, not just for survival, but for closure. He tied himself to the helm, knowing the end was near. The Epurb's signal blinked faintly, a silent cry for help in the vast ocean. As the waves swallowed Wanderlust, John's thoughts turned to his family. He pictured Mary's face, the warmth of her embrace. He regretted not waiting in Cape Town, not listening to the warnings. The sea had shown him its truth, and he had failed to heed it. His last log entry, scrawled as the water rose, read, "I'm sorry. I love you all. The sea wins." The words were smudged, the ink bleeding into the wet pages. A final testament to his struggle. Days later, a search and rescue team from Australia, alerted by the Epurb, found wreckage scattered across the ocean. Fragments of Wanderlust's hull, a torn sail, and the logbook, miraculously preserved in a waterproof pouch, were all that remained. The team pieced together the story, their hearts heavy as they read John's final words. No body was found. The sea had claimed him entirely. Back in Southampton, Mary and their children received the news in January 2023. The room was silent, save for Mary's quiet sobs. They held a memorial, the logbook displayed like a sacred relic, its pages telling a story of courage, error, and loss. The sailing community mourned John, his blog posts and story spreading across forums and social media. His journey, meant to inspire, became a cautionary tale. Sailors dissected his mistake, not reefing early, not deploying a drogue, ignoring the weather warnings. They debated heavy weather tactics, the importance of early preparation, and the dangers of fatigue and solitude. John's logbook entries, shared by his family, went viral, their raw emotion striking a chord. "He was so close," one commenter wrote. "Just one decision changed everything." The story resonated because it was human. A man chasing a dream, undone by a single, unforgivable mistake. John's tale lived on, a reminder of the sea's power and the fine line between triumph and tragedy. His family found solace in his passion, knowing he died doing what he loved. But the pain of his loss lingered, a wound that never fully healed. The Indian Ocean, vast and indifferent, kept its secrets, leaving only the logbook to speak for John. His final words, "The sea wins," echoed in the hearts of those who read them. A haunting reminder that even the most prepared can fall to nature's wrath. And as the waves rolled on, John's dream, though unfulfilled, became a story of courage, hubris, and the unforgiving sea.